Sir, I can make your mother walk again. The voice was weak but carried an unshakable confidence. The millionaire turned, confused, and then froze in shock. He looked down to find a ragged little boy no older than 10. His clothes were torn, clinging to his skinny frame like a second skin. His feet were bare, hardened from the cruel streets. Mud and city dust clung to his skin, and yet his eyes were different. Not the eyes of a beggar asking for coins, but eyes that held wisdom beyond his years. The boy stood beside the millionaire's sleek black car, its surface shining under the pale morning sun. The car alone cost more than the entire street's monthly earnings. People passing by didn't dare to look inside, but this boy, he walked right up to it, fearless. The street was buzzing with life, rickshaws honking, vendors shouting, spices in the air, and a faint aroma of roasted peanuts mixing with the wet scent of the post-monsoon road. But for the man sitting behind the tinted glass, everything else faded. All he could feel was a strange chill running through his veins. The boy repeated calmly, "Sir, I can make your mother walk again." The man slowly stepped out of the car, towering over the child. His face was unreadable, part shock, part suspicion. "Who are you?" he asked. "How do you know anything about my mother?" The boy gave a soft smile. Not the mischievous kind children often give, but something deeper. It was almost pure. "I saw her in the hospital," the boy said. "2 nights ago. She was crying when you weren't there." Those words sliced through the man like a knife. Tears? His mother hadn't spoken in years. How could she cry? He felt his heart clench. The image of his mother, frail, paralyzed, silent, flashed before him. He paid for the best doctors, surrounded her with nurses and machines, but deep down he always feared he'd failed her emotionally. "You're lying," the man said, voice trembling. The boy shook his head gently. "She whispered your name, even when no one could hear. I did. I heard it, and I know. You want her to walk again. I can help." The man stared at the boy, speechless. In that one moment, everything he thought he knew about life, about reality, about possibility, began to unravel. His mother had been paralyzed for over 3 years. A stroke had ripped her world apart. One moment she was walking through their garden, tending to her roses, and the next she collapsed with her teacup still in her hand. That day replayed in his mind like a cursed film reel, again and again. The ambulance sirens, the panic, the desperate, calls to every top neurologist in the country, and then the silence. The diagnosis, the heartbreak. Her voice was the first to go, then her movement, and finally, her smile. He had done everything money could buy. The best private hospitals, therapists flown in from Germany and the US robotic limbs, stem cell trials, brain stimulation, programs. Nothing worked. Each time the doctors shrugged and said, "We're sorry, there's nothing more we can do." A part of him died inside. He had built empires. He had conquered the stock market. People called him a genius, a visionary. But in front of his own mother's helpless body, he felt like a child with empty hands. And now, this? A beggar boy, no older than 10, barefoot and covered in city dust, standing in the middle of a Mumbai street, claiming he could do what billion-dollar science couldn't. The man's jaw tightened. Anger flared. "Don't play games with me," he snapped, his voice cold and sharp like glass. "I don't have time for this." But the boy didn't flinch. He didn't beg, didn't explain. "I'm not the," boy replied simply, softly. "But if you want her to walk again, come with me, right now." There was something in the way he said it. Not arrogance, not desperation, just certainty. The kind of certainty the millionaire hadn't seen in years. Not from surgeons, not from therapists, not even from his own prayers. And there was something else. His eyes. They weren't the eyes of a street child who only knew hunger. They weren't the eyes of someone who'd learned to lie for coins. They were calm, clear, deep. As if he was seeing through the man, into his pain, into his regrets, into all the nights he sat beside his mother's bed, pretending he was okay when he wasn't. For a moment, the world stood still. The honking traffic faded into a dull hum. The shouting vendors, the buzzing crowd, the blinking billboards, gone. It was just the two of them. The billionaire in his tailored suit and the boy in his dirt-smeared shirt, connected by something invisible. The man opened his mouth, then closed it again. Every logical cell in his body told him to walk away, to get back in the car, to forget this nonsense and call his assistant, but his heart, that broken, bruised heart, it whispered something else. What if this boy was real? What if this was the one thread of hope left? The man looked around. No cameras, no journalists, no viral stunt. He took a breath, and then, against all logic, against everything he believed as a man of reason, he followed him, through the bustling crowd, through potholes and muddy puddles, through tangled alleys that smelled of burnt coal and frying oil. The boy walked ahead without turning back, with purpose in every step. The millionaire, whose feet had only known marble floors and imported Italian rugs, now stepped over garbage, ducked under rusted railings, and dodged barking dogs, his heart pounding not from fear, but from something he hadn't felt in years, hope. They passed through broken colonies, slums held together by tarps and dreams. People stared at his clean clothes, his leather shoes now splashed with muck, and the strange sight of him trailing behind a street child like a lost man searching for light. "Where are we going?" he asked once. The boy replied without looking back, "To a place where faith still lives." Something about those words sent chills down the man's spine. Finally, after nearly 40 minutes of walking, they stopped in front of an abandoned temple, its stones cracked and faded, vines creeping over the ancient door. The air here was strangely still, sacred, heavy. The boy turned, eyes glowing with quiet power. "Bring your mother here tomorrow." "Alone," he said. "And do not tell anyone." Before the man could ask anything more, the boy walked around the side of the temple and vanished, just like that. The millionaire stood there, soaked in sweat and silence. Was he crazy? Was this real? But deep in his chest, beneath the layers of power, pride, and pain, a fire had reignited, and for the first time in 3 years, he believed. They walked for nearly 40 minutes, though it felt like hours. The streets narrowed with every turn, losing their shine, their light, their scent of civilization. Skyscrapers disappeared behind layers of tangled wires and half-built shacks. Concrete turned to broken stone. Sidewalks gave way to slippery mud paths. The millionaire, once walking red carpets and boardrooms, was now stepping through puddles filled with grease and sewage. His handmade Italian shoes, once polished to perfection, were now soaked, stained, and ruined. He flinched as sharp pebbles dug into his soles. His crisp trousers caught on rusted metal rods sticking out from walls like claws. He looked around. People were watching. Some whispered. Others just stared at this man in silk, walking behind a boy in rags. And yet, the boy didn't stop. He didn't even slow down. The millionaire's chest tightened. His breath grew heavier. "Where are you taking me?" he barked, frustration and doubt bubbling to the surface. The boy turned just slightly, just enough to be heard, and said, "To the place where miracles happen." That sentence hit like thunder. Miracles. For a man who had been told by top doctors across 5 countries that his mother would never move again, that word felt foreign, fragile, dangerous, but still. He kept walking. They crossed a shaky wooden bridge that creaked with every step, suspended over a black, foul-smelling drain that looked like it hadn't seen sunlight in years. The man almost slipped once, but the boy didn't turn back to help. He didn't need to. The man caught himself, barely. He wasn't used to walking without control, without guards, without guarantees. They passed through a street so narrow, his shoulders brushed both walls at once. Broken posters peeled off the sides. Faded graffiti whispered forgotten prayers. Just when the man thought of turning back, when doubt had almost won, they stopped. In front of them stood an old temple, its structure nearly lost to time. Its walls were cracked, vines crawling up like the fingers of nature trying to hold it together. The once grand entrance was now just a shadow of what it had been, its wooden doors bent inward, one hanging by a single rusty hinge. The paint was long gone. The stone was chipped, but there was something about it, something unexplainable. No people, no offerings, no priests, only silence. And yet, it felt alive. The boy walked up the temple steps slowly, barefoot, yet without fear. The millionaire hesitated at the base, unsure if his feet should follow. But as soon as the boy stepped past the threshold, the air shifted. It was like walking into a memory, a place where time slowed down. The sounds of the city disappeared. No honking, no shouting, no chaos. Only a strange warmth that spread through the millionaire's chest, like something deep inside him had just exhaled after holding its breath. For years. The boy turned to him, eyes glowing gently. "Bring your mother here. Tomorrow. Alone." He paused. "And do not tell anyone." The words weren't a request. They were a command. Not loud, but firm, unchallenged, as if spoken by someone who had seen what others couldn't, before the man could ask why, before he could even say a word. The boy vanished. No footsteps, no rustling, just gone, like he had dissolved into the temple's shadows. The millionaire stood there, frozen, sweat dripping down his face, heart pounding. He turned around slowly, half expecting to see someone filming him, mocking him, telling him this was all a prank. But no one was there. Just the broken temple, the silence, and the feeling in his chest, like something sacred had just touched him. He whispered to himself, who was that boy? And for the first time in his life, he didn't care about answers. He cared about hope. The next day, just after sunrise, the millionaire returned. This time, he wasn't alone. By his side sat his mother, frail, silent, and still as stone. Her once vibrant eyes were clouded by years of pain and isolation. Her body, once graceful and strong, now slumped lifelessly in the wheelchair. Every bump in the road made her wince, though she said nothing, because she couldn't. She hadn't spoken a single word in over 3 years. As they approached the same cracked temple, a strange hush fell over them. The noise of the waking city faded behind them. The same narrow alleys, the same broken bridge. They passed through again, but now with a sense of purpose and something deeper, fear mixed with fragile hope. When the wheelchair rolled to a stop in front of the old temple, the woman slowly turned her head. Her tired eyes landed on the faded stone steps, the crumbling pillars, the creeping vines, and she began to weep. Not loud sobs, just quiet, heartbreaking tears, as if something inside her remembered this place, or perhaps recognized that something profound was about to happen. Then, from the shadows, he appeared again, the boy, barefoot, dust-covered, but calm. His presence carried a strange energy, not of a child, but something older, something eternal. He held a small clay bowl of water and a thin white cloth folded neatly in his hand. He walked slowly toward them, eyes never leaving the old. "Woman, this isn't magic," he said, his voice soft yet unwavering. "It's faith, but it only works if your heart is clean." The millionaire opened his mouth to ask, but something stopped him. Maybe it was respect, maybe it was awe, or maybe something in him already knew that questions weren't needed here. The boy knelt beside the old woman, placed the bowl at her feet, and dipped the cloth in the water. Then, with gentle hands, he began to wipe her legs. He whispered something quietly, under his breath, a chant in a language neither the mother nor the son could recognize. But it wasn't the words that mattered, it was the feeling behind them. Every syllable carried a rhythm, a heartbeat, as if he was speaking to her soul, not just her body. The millionaire could barely breathe. His chest rose and fell with anxiety. His fists were clenched, knuckles white. His mind screamed it was impossible, foolish, but his heart refused to give up. Then, it happened. A small movement, so tiny, it could have been missed. But he saw it. Her toe. It twitched. Once, then again. His eyes widened, his mouth fell open. "Did you see that?" he whispered. She moved." The boy didn't stop. He dipped the cloth again, continued wiping, continued chanting. Then, the old woman's foot shifted. Her heel rose slightly from the wheelchair footrest. She groaned softly. Tears streamed down the millionaire's face. He dropped, to his knees grasping her hand. "Mom! Mom, can you hear me?" Her head turned toward him. Not just turned, moved. Her lips parted slightly. Then, with a voice cracked by silence, she whispered, "My son." The millionaire broke down, sobbing. Years of grief, regret, and guilt came pouring out in that one instant. The boy gently placed the bowl down, wiped his own hands, and stood. "She will walk again," he said with a peaceful smile. "But not because of me." The man looked up, confused. "Then how?" The boy looked at him, eyes glowing with truth. "Because you believed." When the world laughed, and with that the boy stepped back into the shadows. A week later, something happened that no one could explain. The old woman, once confined to silence and stillness, began to move more freely. Her fingers had regained grip. Her feet started to twitch more frequently. Her breathing changed. It became deeper, steadier. Then, on the 7th morning, as sunlight poured through the hospital window, she stood up, unaided. For the first time in 3 long years, she stood on her own legs. The nurses screamed in disbelief. Doctors ran tests, MRI scans, neurological exams. Their conclusion? A spontaneous neurological recovery, they called it. Extremely rare, one said. Almost impossible, said another. But the millionaire? He just smiled. He knew better. This wasn't science. This wasn't coincidence. This was a miracle. And there was only one place his heart knew to go. He returned to that same broken temple, the same path, the same bridge. But this time, no boy waited at the steps. He searched every corner, called out into the shadows, even placed food and coins at the doorstep. "Nothing," he asked the locals. Most shrugged. Some laughed. But one old man, sitting quietly beside a tea stall, looked up when he heard the question. "That boy?" the old man said, eyes narrowing. "He died 3 years ago." The millionaire froze. The man continued. "A truck hit him right outside that temple. He was trying to save a puppy from the road. No one even claimed his body. He was buried right behind the temple wall." The world around the millionaire went silent. He dropped to his knees. His breath caught. Chills swept through the air like a whisper from another world. He had met a soul, not of flesh, but of light. A messenger, a miracle. A second chance wrapped in tattered clothes and innocent eyes. From that day forward, the millionaire changed. He turned his billion-dollar empire into a healing trust, building free clinics, funding surgeries, and opening homes for the homeless. He never took credit. And every year, on that same exact day, he returns to that temple. He places a single clay lamp at the entrance and lights it for the beggar boy. The boy who had nothing but gave him everything, forever. Some miracles don't come with thunder. They come quietly, through people we least expect. If this story touched your heart, if you believe kindness can change lives, and if you think miracles still walk among us, like this video, share it with someone who needs hope. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that will move your heart and awaken your soul. This is not just a channel, it's a place where emotions come alive. Join the journey, inspire the world.